Zalthor's three-fingered hands trembled as he pulled the ancient book from the restricted shelf. Dust particles floated in the dim light of the Galactic Council archives. The book was old, bound in something that looked like leather but felt wrong somehow. The title was printed in Universal Standard, The Compendium of Galactic Apex Predators and Dangerous Fauna. He should not be here. The restricted section was off-limits to junior researchers like himself, but his supervisor had left her access card on the desk, and Zalthor's curiosity had won over his common sense. He was writing his dissertation on predator species across the galaxy. This book could have exactly what he needed. Zalthor carried the heavy book to a reading desk in the corner. His homeworld, Centauri Prime, had no predators. The most dangerous animal there was a small herbivore that occasionally bit when startled. He had always been fascinated by the concept of creatures that hunted and killed to survive. He opened the book carefully. The first page showed a creature called a Krillian void serpent. The image made Zalthor's blood run cold. It was massive, with rows of teeth and armored scales that could supposedly withstand ship weapons. The text explained that 3 star systems had been abandoned because of these creatures. Zalthor had heard stories about them since childhood. He turned the page expecting to find another alien monster from a distant galaxy. Instead, he found something called a honey badger from a planet labeled Earth Sector 251A. The creature was small, almost cute with its black and white fur. But the description made no sense. Despite its small size, the honey badger is nearly impossible to kill. It has been observed fighting creatures 10 times its size. When attacked, it enters a state of rage that overrides pain and fear. Bite force exceeds predictions for its body mass. Notable incident. Subject 4 was observed being stung by a highly venomous snake, fell unconscious for 2 hours, then woke up and continued eating the snake. Recommend extreme caution. Zalthor blinked his large eyes several times. This must be an error. He turned the page again. Orca, apex predator of Earth's oceans. Another page. Saltwater crocodile, ambush predator. Another. Polar bear, hypercarnivore. Another. Cape buffalo. Defensive megafauna. Page after page. All from Earth. Zalthor's confusion grew into concern, then into something close to fear. He flipped through faster now, watching the page numbers climb. 20 pages about Earth, 30, 40. His hand stopped at page 57. The entry simply read, Human Homo sapiens, with a picture of a bipedal creature that looked almost harmless. 2 arms, 2 legs, no natural armor, no claws, no fangs. But the description went on for 3 full pages. Human beings are persistence predators, a hunting strategy almost unique in the galaxy. They do not rely on speed or strength for the initial kill. Instead, they chase prey for hours or even days until the target collapses from exhaustion. Human endurance capabilities exceed all known sapient species by a factor of 3 to 10. Zalthor read on, his breathing becoming faster. Humans possess an unusual relationship with pain and injury. They have been documented continuing to fight with broken bones, severe lacerations, and injuries that would incapacitate other species. Their psychology includes a fight-or-flight response that floods their system with combat-enhancing chemicals. Notably, humans often choose fight even when flight is the logical option. The entry continued with incident reports. A human who lifted a ground vehicle off another human using only adrenaline-fueled strength. A human who walked 15 miles on a broken leg to reach help. A human who fought off a large predator with bare hands to protect offspring. But the most disturbing part came at the end. Humans show remarkable adaptability to hostile environments. They have successfully colonized every climate zone on their planet, from frozen polar regions to extreme deserts to dense jungles filled with venomous species. They appear to view danger as a challenge rather than a deterrent. Zalthor turned to the last page of the book, number 60. It contained no creature entry. Instead, it was a warning written by someone named Senior Explorer Vathic and dated 347 years ago. After 6 months of observing planet Earth from orbit, this research team recommends immediate planetary quarantine. Earth is a Class 12 death world with extreme weather patterns, tectonic instability, and a predator-to-prey ratio that should make complex life impossible. Yet life not only exists but thrives in violent competition. The warning continued. The native sapient species, humans, display all characteristics of apex predators despite also possessing advanced intelligence and social structures. This combination has never been observed before. They have created weapons far beyond their technological level's norm, suggesting innovation driven by constant environmental pressure. The final lines were underlined twice. First contact is not advised. If humans ever develop faster than light travel and leave their planet, they will bring with them every survival instinct their death world taught them. The galaxy is not prepared for a species that treats survival as a baseline rather than an achievement. Recommend monitoring only. Do not engage. Zalthor sat back in his chair, his mind racing. Something was very wrong with this warning. He pulled out his personal datapad and searched for Earth and humans in the current Galactic Council database. The results made his heart stop. Human, sapient species from Sector 2521A, Planet Earth. Member of the Galactic Council since 2257 CE, 30 years ago. Current population in Council space, approximately 2.3 billion across 15 colony worlds and 72 stations. Known for roles in freight transport, deep space exploration, emergency response, private security, and extreme environment construction. Zalthor read the entry 3 times. Humans were already here. They had been here for 30 years. They were members of the Galactic Council, the same governing body that operated these very archives. The book he held was 347 years old. The warning had been written before humans even had space travel. But somehow the book had been classified and hidden away in the restricted section. Why, if humans were dangerous, why let them join the Council? If they were not dangerous, why hide the book? Zalthor looked at the book again, at the 59 pages dedicated to Earth's creatures. 59 pages of monsters, predators, and survivors from a single planet. 1 page for the rest of the galaxy's dangerous species combined. He took out his datapad and began taking pictures of the pages. This was definitely against the rules, but Zalthor needed to understand. He needed to know why an entire planet of predators had been allowed into peaceful galactic society. More importantly, he needed to know if the galaxy was safe. As he photographed the last page with its dire warning, Zalthor made a decision. He would investigate this mystery. He would find out the truth about humans and Earth. He had no idea that his investigation would change everything he thought he knew about strength, survival, and what it meant to be a monster. Zalthor carefully returned the book to its shelf and left the archives, the images safely stored in his datapad. Tomorrow he would begin his research. Tomorrow, he would start asking questions about humanity. He did not know that he was not the first to ask these questions, or that the answers would terrify him far more than any book ever could. Zalthor spent the next week buried in research. His small apartment was covered with datapads, holographic displays, and printed documents. He had barely slept, surviving on nutrient paste and stimulant drinks. What he was learning about humans made no logical sense. The official records painted humans as peaceful, cooperative members of the Galactic Council. They had signed every treaty, followed every law, and contributed significantly to galactic trade and exploration. But between the lines, Zalthor found something else entirely. He discovered that 70% of all freight routes through dangerous space were operated by human companies. The routes that other species had abandoned due to pirate activity, spatial anomalies, or simple danger were somehow profitable for human businesses. Zalthor decided he needed to see this for himself. He bought passage on a human-operated cargo ship called the Steady Hand, traveling through the Outer Rim territories. The ticket was surprisingly cheap. When he boarded, he understood why. The ship was old and scarred with weapons fire. The crew consisted of only 7 humans, led by a woman named Captain Sarah Chen. She was tall by human standards, with dark hair tied back and a mechanical implant replacing her left eye. "First time on a human ship?" Sarah asked as Zalthor tried to store his luggage in his tiny cabin. "Yes, Captain. I am conducting research on various species for my academic work." Zalthor lied smoothly. He could not tell her he was investigating whether humans were secretly dangerous. Sarah laughed, a short bark of sound. "Well, you picked an interesting route. We're cutting through the Razor Belt. Pirates love that area. Don't worry, though, we've made this run 40 times. Only been boarded twice." Zalthor felt his blood go cold. "Only twice? That seems like a high number, Captain." Sarah looked at him with confusion. "Twice in 40 runs? That's a really good record. Back on Earth, I used to drive a transport truck on Highway 80. Got carjacked 4 times in 2 years. This is much safer." She walked away before Zalthor could ask what a carjacking was, or why she considered space piracy safer than driving on her home planet. During the journey, Zalthor observed the crew carefully. They were relaxed, joking with each other, playing strange human games during off hours. They did not seem like the apex predators from the Encyclopedia. They seemed normal, even friendly. Then they entered the Razor Belt and everything changed. Alarms blared. 3 pirate ships appeared on scanners, fast attack craft built for boarding operations. The crew moved with sudden purpose, but there was no panic. They simply went to their stations. Zalthor watched from the bridge as Sarah calmly ordered evasive maneuvers through an asteroid field that made his head spin. The ship twisted and dove through gaps that seemed impossibly small. One pirate ship tried to follow and clipped an asteroid spiraling away. Should we not call for help? Zalthor asked, his voice shaking. Sarah did not take her eyes off the display. From who? Nearest council patrol is 6 hours away. We'll handle it. 2 pirate ships were still chasing them, firing weapons that lit up the darkness of space. Sarah flew the steady hand through the asteroids like she was dancing. The ship groaned and shook, but she never hesitated. Marcus, how are our rear shields? She called out. At 40%, Cap, a young human male responded. But I can reroute power from life support for a few minutes if you need it. Zalthor stared. You would reduce our life support during combat? Marcus grinned at him. We can hold our breath. The ship can't. The chase lasted 20 minutes. Sarah eventually led the pirates into a dense cluster of spinning asteroids. One pirate ship was destroyed when it could not match her maneuvers. The other gave up and retreated. Sarah brought the ship out of the belt and resumed course like nothing had happened. Not bad, she said, rolling her shoulders. Could have been worse. There was this one time near Jupiter Station where we had 5 pirate ships and a spatial anomaly. Now that was exciting. Zalthor could not speak. What humans called exciting would be classified as a survival emergency for any other species. After the journey, Zalthor traveled to the Galactic Council headquarters on Station Unity. He had arranged an interview with Ambassador Marcus Webb, humanity's primary representative to the Council. The ambassador's office was surprisingly modest, decorated with images of Earth landscapes that looked simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. Ambassador Webb was an older human with gray hair and kind eyes. He offered Zalthor a beverage called coffee, which Zalthor politely declined after scanning it and discovering it contained a mild toxin that humans apparently enjoyed. What can I do for you, researcher Zalthor? Marcus asked, sitting back in his chair. Zalthor decided to be direct. Ambassador, I have been studying humanity's integration into galactic society. I have found some concerning information about Earth and its classification as a death world. I wanted to ask you about this directly. Marcus's expression did not change, but something flickered in his eyes. I see. You found the old encyclopedia, didn't you? The one from the first contact team. Zalthor's surprise must have shown on his face. Marcus smiled sadly. We know about the book. The Council showed it to us during the first contact negotiations 30 years ago. They wanted us to understand how we were perceived. Honestly, we were shocked. We thought we were joining the galaxy as the underdogs, the new kids who had a lot to learn. Marcus stood and walked to his window, looking out at the station's central hub where thousands of beings from hundreds of species moved about their daily lives. Here's what we didn't understand, Zalthor. Most species in the galaxy evolved on gentle worlds, average gravity around 0.8 g, stable climates, few natural disasters. Predators were rare and usually not a threat to sapient species. Your people, the Centauri, are a perfect example. Your biggest predator is what? The size of a small dog? Zalthor nodded slowly. Marcus continued. Earth is different. We have 1g gravity, which makes us stronger just from living there. We have hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, volcanoes, and tsunamis. We have lions, tigers, bears, sharks, crocodiles, hippos, elephants, and thousands of venomous species. We have deserts that can kill you with heat, poles that can kill you with cold, and jungles so full of things trying to kill you that we had to invent entire branches of medicine just to survive there. He turned back to Zalthor. We didn't choose to be survivors. Earth made us that way. But here's the thing that the Encyclopedia got wrong. It focused on what we can endure and how we can fight. It never mentioned what we do when we're not fighting. What do you mean? Zalthor asked. Marcus smiled. Humans don't just survive, Zalthor. We create art, music, and literature. We form friendships across species lines. We adopted the wolves that tried to eat us and turned them into dogs, our best friends. We cry at sad stories. We laugh at stupid jokes. We help people we've never met just because it's the right thing to do. Yes, Earth made us tough, but humanity made us kind. Zalthor wanted to believe this, but he had seen the data. Ambassador, humans make up less than 5% of the galactic population, but you comprise 40% of all registered mercenaries, 60% of emergency response teams, and 90% of hostile environment specialists. These are not peaceful professions. Marcus sat down again, his expression serious now. You're right. And do you know why? Because we're the only ones who can do those jobs. When there's a station failure in a high radiation zone, who can survive long enough to fix it? Humans. When pirates attack a convoy in an asteroid field, who has the reflexes and risk tolerance to fight back? Humans. When someone is trapped on a dying planet and every rescue is called off as impossible, who goes anyway? Humans, he leaned forward. We're not mercenaries because we love violence, Zalthor. We're mercenaries because we're the only ones crazy enough to help. We're not thriving in dangerous professions because we're monsters. We're there because everyone else very reasonably decided those jobs are too dangerous and someone needs to do them. Zalthor sat in silence, processing this. Everything he had learned was shifting in his mind, forming a new picture. Humans were dangerous, yes, but they were dangerous the way a guard dog was dangerous, not the way a wild predator was dangerous. How does the rest of the galaxy see you? Zalthor finally asked. Marcus laughed, but there was something sad in it. With suspicion, mostly. Fear sometimes. Respect occasionally. Most species keep us at arm's length. They hire us when they need us, but they don't really want us around. We're useful but unsettling, like having a tame tiger. Everyone knows it could kill them, even if it has no intention of doing so. Zalthor left the interview with more questions than answers. Humans were clearly not the monsters the Encyclopedia suggested, but they were not entirely safe either. He decided he needed to dig deeper. He needed to understand what humans were truly capable of when pushed to their limits. He had no idea that he would get his answer much sooner than he expected. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called at 400-hour station time. Zalthor was awakened by his supervisor, Professor Kithara, who told him to come immediately. As a junior researcher who had recently submitted a report on human integration, he was being called as a witness. The council chamber was chaos. Representatives from 300 species filled the seats, all talking at once. Holographic displays showed a planet called Theta 7, a mining colony on the outer rim. The displays also showed something else, something massive and terrifying, a stellar ravager. Zalthor had only seen pictures of ravagers in historical archives. They were believed to be extinct, wiped out 2,000 years ago after they destroyed 17 colonies. The creatures were living nightmares, 15 feet tall, covered in armor plating that could deflect most weapons with acidic blood that melted through metal. They could survive in vacuum, extreme temperatures, and high radiation. They were territorial, aggressive, and nearly impossible to kill. And one was currently rampaging through a colony of 50,000 civilians. Council Speaker Torvan, an elderly centauri with silver skin, called for order. The chamber slowly quieted. We have received a distress call from Theta 7. A dormant stellar ravager was apparently disturbed by deep mining operations. It has awakened and is attacking the colony. Current casualty count is 3,000 and rising. We have assembled this emergency session to determine our response. A holographic video played. It showed the ravager tearing through a residential building like it was made of paper. People were running, screaming. The colony's security forces were firing weapons at the creature, but the shots bounced off its armor. When one lucky shot penetrated, the acidic blood that sprayed out melted 2 security officers. Zalthor felt sick watching it. Military Commander Zefrik, a 4-armed warrior from the Kaldan Empire, stood to speak. Honorable Council, the situation is clear. The colony cannot be saved. We must evacuate who we can and abandon the rest. A ravager cannot be fought on the ground. It requires orbital bombardment. That would kill everyone in the colony, someone objected. Most are already dead. Zefrik replied coldly. We can save perhaps 5,000 if we begin evacuation immediately. The rest will die regardless. The ravager has positioned itself near the main spaceport. Any evacuation ships are being attacked. We cannot land troops. We cannot extract civilians. Orbital bombardment is the only option that prevents the creature from eventually repairing a ship and leaving the planet. The council erupted in argument. Some agreed with the military assessment. Others demanded alternatives. Zalthor watched as speaker after speaker stood, and each conclusion was the same. The colony was lost. Then Tavera, a representative from the Avian Concordat, stood. Her feathers were ruffled with agitation. There is one option we have not discussed. We could ask the humans. The chamber fell completely silent. Every eye turned to Tavera. She continued, her voice steady despite the attention. Humans are the only species with documented success in hunting megafauna. Their planet had creatures called mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, and giant bears, all of which early humans hunted to extinction using primitive weapons. Modern human military units specialize in hostile environment combat. If anyone can kill a stellar ravager on the ground, it would be humans. Ambassador Marcus Webb stood slowly from his seat. He had been quiet until now, but Zalthor could see the tension in his posture. Council members, I need to be very clear about what you would be asking, Marcus said, his voice carrying across the chamber. You would not be asking us to send soldiers. You would be asking us to send hunters. You would be asking us to do what we do best, which is track, corner, and kill something that terrifies you. You would be asking us to be exactly what that old encyclopedia said we were. Apex predators. No one spoke. Zalthor could feel the fear in the room. These representatives had spent the last 30 years pretending humans were just another species, just slightly stronger and more durable. Marcus was asking them to acknowledge the truth. If we do this, Marcus continued, some of my people will die, probably several, and you will have to watch us hunt, which means you will see exactly what humans are capable of when we stop being civilized and start being survivors. You will see why Earth is a death world. Once you see that, you cannot unsee it. Council Speaker Torvand spoke carefully. Ambassador Webb, are you saying you would not help? Marcus shook his head. No, I'm saying we will help. But I need this council to understand what you're asking for. You're asking us to stop being the friendly humans who smile and wave and fit in. You're asking us to be what we were before civilization, before we learned to be kind. You're asking for Earth's monsters. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of various representatives. If you want this, I will send out a call for volunteers. But I need a vote. I need you all to agree that this is what you want, that you're willing to watch humans be humans. The vote was called. It took 30 minutes of debate, but eventually it passed. 247 in favor, 53 against. Marcus nodded and immediately sent out a communication on his personal device. Within minutes, he received a response. He looked up at the council, and Zalthor saw something in his expression that made him nervous. It was not quite a smile. It was something older, something predatory. We have volunteers, Marcus announced. Lieutenant Maria Santos and a 12-person team from Earth's Hostile Environment Response Division. They're loading onto a fast response ship now. They'll arrive at Theta 7 in 18 hours. What is the Hostile Environment Response Division? Someone asked. They're soldiers who train in the worst places on Earth, Marcus explained. The Amazon rainforest, where it rains every day and everything is poisonous. The Arctic, where you freeze if you stop moving. The Australian outback, where the heat kills in hours and every animal is venomous. The deep oceans, where the pressure can crush you. These are not regular soldiers. These are the people we send when we need humans who remember how to survive. Zalthor felt a chill run through his body. He had pushed for this investigation. He had wanted to know what humans were truly capable of. Now he was going to find out, and he was terrified of the answer. The council adjourned. Ships were being prepared to observe the operation. Media outlets across the galaxy were picking up the story. For the first time in 30 years, humans were about to show the galaxy what they really were. Zalthor secured a spot on the observation ship. He had to see this. He had to know if the encyclopedia was right, if humans really were the monsters described in those 59 pages. As he boarded the observation ship, he received a message from Ambassador Marcus. It was a copy of a communication between Marcus and Lieutenant Santos. Zalthor opened it with shaking hands. Marcus had written, Maria, they don't understand what they're asking. They think you're just soldiers. They don't know you're hunters. Santos had replied, Good. Let them figure it out on their own. We'll take care of the Ravager. We've killed bigger things for less important reasons. The casual confidence in that message terrified Zalthor more than anything else. To humans, a stellar Ravager was just another predator, just another challenge. The observation ship launched toward Theta 7. In 18 hours, Zalthor would witness something the galaxy had not seen in recorded history. He would watch humans hunt. The observation ship arrived at Theta 7 at the same time as the human team. Zalthor watched through the main display as a small military transport landed on the outskirts of the colony, far from the Ravager's last known position. 12 humans emerged, and Zalthor's first thought was that they looked small. Lieutenant Maria Santos was the team leader. She was medium height for a human, with dark skin and hair tied back tightly. She moved with purpose as she directed her team to unload equipment. The other humans ranged in age from early 20s to what looked like late 40s in human years. They did not look like warriors. They looked like ordinary people. The observation ship's communication officer patched through the human team's radio frequency. Now everyone on the observation deck could hear their conversation. Council members, military officers, and researchers like Zalthor all listened as the humans began their mission. "All right, people," Santos said, her voice calm and professional. "Standard hostile environment protocol. First, we observe. I want movement patterns, attack behavior, territorial boundaries, and weak points. Chen, you're our tracker. Okafor, you handle medical and biology. Rest of you stay sharp and don't do anything stupid." One of the humans, a tall man with red hair, laughed. "Don't do anything stupid? We literally volunteered to fight a stellar Ravager, LT. That ship has sailed." Santos smiled, but her eyes stayed serious. "Yeah, well, let's do controlled stupid, not random stupid. Move out." The team split into groups and began moving through the abandoned sections of the colony. Their body cameras transmitted everything back to the observation ship. Zalthor watched as they moved through destroyed buildings, stepping over debris and occasionally past bodies of colonists who had not escaped. The humans did not seem bothered by the carnage. They were focused, professional. One of them, a woman named Chen, stopped frequently to examine tracks and damage patterns. "Ravager came through here about 6 hours ago," Chen reported. "Claws marks on the walls indicate it was moving fast, probably chasing someone. It's territorial but also aggressive toward movement." "Bad combination? Weight estimate?" Santos asked. "Based on the depth of these cracks?" "I'd say 8 to 10 tons. And look at this." Chen pointed her camera at a wall that had been melted partially. Acid blood. "It's been injured here, probably by security forces, so it can be hurt, just not easily." The team continued tracking. They found more evidence of the Ravager's movements, building a pattern. After 6 hours, they had not even seen the creature yet, and the council observers were getting impatient. "Why are they not engaging?" Military Commander Zefrik demanded. "Every hour they waste, more colonists die." Ambassador Marcus, who had joined the observation ship, replied quietly. "They're hunting. You don't run at a predator blindly. You learn it first, watch." 2 more hours passed. Then Chen's voice came over the radio, excited but controlled. "Got visual. Sending coordinates. Range is 200 meters, target is feeding on something in what looks like an old warehouse." Santos ordered the team to observation positions. Zalthor watched through multiple camera feeds as all 12 humans positioned themselves around the warehouse, hidden behind rubble and walls. The Ravager came into view, and Zalthor felt his breath catch. It was massive. The pictures had not done it justice. 15 feet of armored horror, with 6 legs and a head that was mostly teeth. Its armor plating was dark gray and scarred from weapons fire. It was currently tearing apart some kind of machinery, possibly looking for hiding colonists. The humans watched it for 3 hours. They did not move. They barely spoke. They just observed. Finally, Santos gave an order that made no sense to Zalthor. "Chen Ramirez, I need you to make it angry. Use the non-lethal charges. I want to see how fast it moves when provoked." 2 humans moved into position and fired what looked like flashbang grenades near the Ravager. The explosions were loud and bright but not damaging. The Ravager roared, a sound that made everyone on the observation ship flinch and charge toward the source of the noise. The 2 humans ran. The Ravager followed, moving faster than something that large should be able to move. But the humans were faster. They led it through a prepared route while the other 10 humans observed from hiding. "Note the acceleration time," Santos said clinically, as if she was not watching her people nearly get killed. 3 seconds from rest to full speed. That's exploitable. Also noting it corners poorly. Takes it too long to redirect momentum. "LT, this thing is terrifying," one of the humans said, watching through binoculars. "Yeah," Santos agreed. But it's also just an animal. Earth has animals. We know animals. On the observation ship, Zalthor heard someone mutter, "They are insane. They are treating a stellar ravager like it is a common beast." But the humans continued their analysis. They tested the ravager's aggression, its sensory capabilities, its attack patterns. They intentionally angered it multiple times, always staying just out of reach, always learning. Then Sergeant Tom Okafor did something that made the entire observation deck gasp. He deliberately let the ravager hit him. It was a grazing blow, just catching his left arm. But the ravager's claws tore through his armor, and blood splattered across the ground. Okafor rolled away and sprinted to safety while two other humans provided covering fire with weapons that only served to anger the creature more. "Okafor, status," Santos barked. "I'm good, LT," Okafor responded, breathing hard. He was behind cover now, examining his wound. "Deep lacerations, no acid?" "The acid is only in the blood, not on the claws." "That's important. Also, that thing hits like a freight train. Felt like getting hit by a truck." "You let it hit you to test the acid theory?" another human asked, incredulous. "Had to know," Okafor replied, already treating his wound with a medical kit. "Can't plan an attack if we don't know all the variables. Besides, it's just a scratch." Zalthor looked at the camera feed. It was not just a scratch. It was a serious injury that would hospitalize most species for weeks. Okafor was bandaging it himself and would apparently be continuing the mission. The observation continued for another 12 hours. The humans rotated who was on watch, who was resting, who was bait. They laughed and joked between observations, discussing which earth animal the ravager most resembled. "It's basically a honey badger mixed with a Komodo dragon," one said. "Nah, it's more like a hippo, super aggressive for no reason," another replied. "You're both wrong. It's a cassowary, armored, angry, and way more dangerous than it looks." They were joking about the creature that had killed 3,000 colonists. They were comparing it to earth animals like it was a game, and slowly Zalthor began to understand something. To these humans, the ravager was not a unique horror. It was just another predator on a planet of predators. They had been dealing with creatures like this their entire evolutionary history. Finally, after 18 hours on the ground, Santos called the team together. "All right, we know enough. Time to end this. Everyone remember the plan we discussed. We've got one shot at this, and if we mess up, we're all dead." "Questions?" "Yeah," one human said. "After we kill this thing, can we get something to eat?" "I'm starving," Santos actually laughed. "Sure, Rodriguez. We'll find you some MREs." "Okay, people. Let's go hunting." The observation deck was silent. Every being watching knew they were about to witness something unprecedented. The 12 humans moved into position. They had spent nearly a full day learning the Ravager's patterns, its strengths, its weaknesses. Now they were going to use all of that knowledge. Santos spoke into her radio, her voice calm and cold. "Execute extermination protocol." Zalthor noticed the word choice. Not elimination, not neutralization, extermination. The word you used for pests. For vermin, for something beneath you, the hunt began. The humans did not face the Ravager in direct combat. They were smarter than that. They used explosives to collapse a building on it, not to kill it, but to enrage it. They used fire to drive it into a prepared killing zone. They used its own aggression against it, making it charge into traps. When it adapted, they adapted faster. When it tried to flee, they cut off escape routes. When it tried to hide, they found it. The Ravager, one of the most dangerous creatures in galactic history, was being systematically broken down by 12 humans who treated it like it was just another day at work. At one point, the Ravager managed to corner 3 humans in a dead-end alley. It roared in triumph and charged. The humans stood their ground, fired their weapons at its eyes to blind it, and at the last second dove aside. The Ravager crashed into the wall behind them with such force that it stunned itself. Before it could recover, 2 other humans triggered an explosive that brought down a support beam onto its back. It was not enough to kill it, but it was enough to crack the armor plating. "Weak point confirmed," Santos said. "Converge on target. End this." The final phase of the hunt lasted 6 more hours. The humans chased the Ravager through the colony, never letting it rest, never giving it time to recover. They drove it into traps. They wounded it repeatedly, avoiding the acid blood. They used psychological warfare, making sounds and movements that confused it, making it doubt its own senses. For the first time in recorded history, a stellar Ravager showed fear. The Galactic Council chamber was packed for the ceremony. Every seat was filled and hundreds more beings watched via holographic projection. The 12 humans stood on the central platform, looking uncomfortable in their dress uniforms. Lieutenant Maria Santos stood at the front, still bearing visible scars from Theta 7. Xalthor watched from the research section. He had been invited because his investigation into humanity had made him an unofficial expert on the species. In the week since the Ravager's death, he had become one of the most consulted individuals in the galaxy regarding human behavior. Council Speaker Torvan stood at his podium, holding the Star of Valor, the Council's highest military honor, but his hands were shaking slightly. The chamber had a strange tension to it, pride mixed with fear. Lieutenant Santos, Torvan began, his voice formal. You and your team saved 47,000 lives. You accomplished what we believed impossible. On behalf of the Galactic Council, we present you with the Star of Valor. Santos stepped forward and accepted the medal. She looked at it for a moment, then looked up at the assembled council with an expression Xalthor could not quite read. Thank you, she said simply. We were just doing our job. But as she stepped back, Xalthor could hear the whispers starting around the chamber. Not all of them were grateful. He heard words like dangerous, violent, and uncontrolled. Some representatives were looking at the humans with barely concealed fear. The ceremony concluded quickly. As the crowd began to disperse, Xalthor noticed several council members deliberately avoiding the humans. The 12 were left standing on the platform, honored but isolated. Ambassador Marcus approached them, said something quietly, and they left together. Xalthor knew he needed to address the council. He had spent the last week preparing his final report. He had requested time to present it today after the ceremony. Now, as representatives began filing out, he was granted 5 minutes to speak. He walked to the central podium, his data pad shaking in his hands. He was just a junior researcher. Most of these beings would not care what he had to say, but he had to try. Honorable council members, he began, his voice almost too quiet. He cleared his throat and tried again. Please, I request just a few minutes of your time. I have been studying humanity for the past several months. What I have learned is important for us all to understand. Some representatives paused. Others continued leaving. But enough stayed that Xalthor felt he could continue. When I began this research, I believed humans were dangerous. I had found an old encyclopedia that documented Earth's predators. 59 of 60 pages were dedicated to creatures from a single planet. I was terrified. I thought we had let monsters into our civilized society. He pulled up a holographic display showing pages from the encyclopedia. Images of lions, sharks, and yes, humans filled the air around him. But I was asking the wrong question, Xalthor continued. I was asking, are humans dangerous? When I should have been asking, why are humans dangerous? Earth did not create monsters. Earth created survivors. He changed the display to show images of Earth itself. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and extreme weather patterns. Every creature on Earth evolved to survive constant threats. Humans are no different. They are persistence predators because on Earth nothing else worked. They developed high pain tolerance because on Earth, injury is common and you must keep moving. They created weapons and tools because on Earth you die if you do not adapt. More representatives were listening now. Xalthor felt his confidence growing. But here is what the encyclopedia did not show. Here is what I did not understand until I met them. He changed the display again, showing images of humans helping other species, humans teaching alien children, humans building homes for refugees. Earth made humans survivors, but humanity made humans protectors. They do not just endure, they help others endure. They do not just fight, they fight for others. Yes, they are apex predators, but they are also the species that domesticated wolves into pets. They are the species that cries at sad stories. They are the species that will risk their lives to save complete strangers. He looked directly at the representatives who seemed most fearful. We asked them to kill a stellar ravager. We asked them to be the monsters we feared they were. And they agreed, not because they love violence, but because people were dying and they were the only ones who could help. That is what you saw on Theta 7, not monsters. Protectors who know how to be monsters when necessary. The chamber was quiet now. Xalthor took a deep breath and continued. I believe we have a choice. We can continue to fear humans, to keep them at distance, to use them only when we need their unique skills and then push them away. Or we can accept that having survivors on our side, having protectors who know how to fight is not a weakness. It is our greatest strength." He paused, then added quietly, "The galaxy is not as safe as we pretend it is. We have pirate attacks and spatial anomalies, and now we know that stellar ravagers might not be extinct. We need humans, not despite what they are, but because of what they are." Zalthor ended his presentation and stepped down. The response was mixed. Some representatives approached him afterward to discuss his findings. Others left quickly, clearly uncomfortable with his conclusions. But then something unexpected happened. Ambassador Marcus Webb requested an emergency session to propose a new initiative. The council agreed, curious about what he would suggest. Marcus stood at the podium that evening with Lieutenant Santos beside him. He addressed the council with the same quiet confidence he always showed. "Members of the council, I want to propose the creation of a new organization. We would call it the Galactic Emergency Response Corps. Its mission would be simple: train volunteers from any species in the survival and rescue techniques that humans use every day." The chamber erupted in discussion. Marcus waited for it to quiet before continuing. "I know many of you fear us. I know you look at what we did on Theta 7 and see monsters, but Lieutenant Santos has something she would like to say about that." Santos stepped forward. She looked tired, but her voice was strong. "I grew up in a place on Earth called Alaska. It is cold, dark half the year, and filled with large predators. My father taught me to survive there. He taught me to respect the dangers, to be prepared, and to help my neighbors because we were all struggling against the same harsh environment." She looked around the chamber, meeting eyes. "You are afraid of us. I understand. But here is what you need to know. Earth made us survivors, yes. But being a survivor is not the same as being a monster. A monster destroys. A survivor protects what they have. And humans, we are very good at protecting things we care about." She gestured to the council. "We care about this. We care about the galaxy we joined 30 years ago. We care about the species we have met, traded with, and befriended. Yes, we killed a ravager. We did it efficiently and without mercy because that is what you needed us to do. But do you know what my team did immediately after? We spent 3 days digging through rubble to find survivors. We gave our food to hungry children. We sat with dying colonists so they would not be alone." Her voice grew stronger. "Earth taught us to survive anything. But humanity taught us to make sure others can survive too. You can keep your encyclopedia that lists our dangers. Add more pages if you want. Document every way we could hurt you. But maybe also write this: humans are apex predators who chose to be guardians instead." The chamber was completely silent. Santos stepped back and Marcus continued. "We are offering to teach anyone who wants to learn. Not how to be human, but how to survive like humans. How to push through fear. How to adapt to danger. How to protect what matters. The choice is yours." The vote was called 3 days later. The Galactic Emergency Response Corps was approved by a narrow margin. 163 in favor, 137 against. It was enough. Within a month, 200 volunteers from 40 different species had signed up for the first training class. Zalthor was one of them. He stood on Earth for the first time at a training facility in a place called Colorado. The gravity was exhausting. The air was thin. Everything about the planet felt hostile. And his instructor, a human woman named Jennifer Park, smiled at his discomfort. "First rule of survival," she said cheerfully, "Earth does not care about your comfort. You adapt or you fail. Second rule, we all help each other adapt. Nobody survives alone." Zalthor looked around at the other trainees. Different species, different homeworlds, all here to learn from humans. They looked scared. He probably did too, but they were trying. That had to count for something. Over the next 6 months, Zalthor learned things he never imagined he could do. He learned to hike through snow. He learned basic survival skills. He learned that his body could do far more than he believed possible when pushed by necessity and supported by teammates. He also learned that humans were patient teachers. They never mocked his struggles. They celebrated his successes. They caught him when he fell and taught him to get back up. On graduation day, Jennifer pulled Zalthor aside. "You did good," she said. "Most people from low-gravity worlds wash out in the first week. You stuck with it." "I had to understand," Zalthor replied. "I had to know what humans really are."